Once upon a time, in a small fishing village on the coast of Japan, there lived a young man named Urashima Taro. Taro was a humble, hardworking fisherman with a heart of gold. He lived in a modest hut with his elderly mother, whom he cared for with deep devotion. Every day, he went out to sea in his boat to cast his nets, and the little he earned was enough to ensure a peaceful life for them both. His routine was dictated by the rhythm of the waves, until one summer afternoon, a seemingly insignificant event changed his destiny forever. While walking along the beach at sunset, Taro noticed a group of children clamoring over something on the sand. As he approached, he saw them tormenting a small sea turtle, hitting it with sticks and turning it over on its shell to prevent it from escaping. Moved by compassion, the fisherman immediately intervened. He scolded the boys and offered them some coins to hand over the creature. Once alone, Taro gently took the turtle in his hands, brushed the sand from its shell, and placed it on the shore, watching it swim happily toward the horizon. A few days later, Taro was fishing offshore, immersed in the silence of the open sea. Suddenly, he heard a deep voice calling his name. Looking over the side of the boat, he saw a gigantic turtle, majestic and ancient, emerge from the water. To the fisherman's surprise, the animal began to speak. "Urashima Taro, I have come to thank you. The little turtle you saved the other day was actually the daughter of Ryujin, the mighty dragon god of the sea. To reward your kindness, my lady invites you to her kingdom, the legendary Dragon Palace." Surprised but fascinated by the incredible proposal, Taro accepted. He climbed onto the back of the great turtle, which immediately plunged into the ocean depths. To his amazement, the fisherman discovered he could breathe underwater without difficulty. They swam deeper and deeper, passing schools of colorful fish and forests of luminescent seaweed, until they saw a golden light appear. Before them loomed the Ryugyujo, a palace of indescribable beauty, built entirely of red coral, glittering pearls, and roofs of solid gold that reflected the magical light of the ocean. Upon his arrival, Taro was greeted by a host of sea creatures in ceremonial robes, who led him before the beautiful Princess Otohime, daughter of the dragon god. The princess, radiant and grateful, thanked him for saving her life when she had recklessly ventured ashore in the guise of a small turtle. To honor him, an unprecedented royal banquet was prepared. Taro sampled delectable foods he had never seen before, while fish of every shape and color danced to entertain him. The palace held an extraordinary secret: each of its 4 sides housed a different season. Looking east, one could admire the cherry blossoms of spring; to the south, the lush greenery of summer; to the west, the red leaves of autumn; to the north, the snow-covered landscapes of winter. Taro was so captivated by that paradise that the days flew by one after another in an atmosphere of perpetual happiness. However, after what seemed like the 3rd day, the thought of his elderly mother and his old life returned, gripping his heart with a pang of nostalgia. Taro reluctantly communicated his decision to Princess Otohime. He absolutely had to return home to embrace his mother. The princess expressed deep sorrow, but understood his noble sense of duty. Before letting him go, she gave him a farewell gift, a precious lacquered wooden box, inlaid with gold and tied with a silk cord, called Tamadabeko, the treasure box. However, Otohime gave him a stern warning: "This box holds something priceless that will protect you, but you must promise me one fundamental thing: no matter what happens, you must never, under any circumstances, open it." The young man gave his word, climbed back onto the giant turtle's back, and began the journey back to the surface. When he resurfaced near the beach of his village, the summer air welcomed him warmly, but his surroundings immediately seemed strange and distorted. Walking toward the village, Taro no longer recognized the paths. The wooden houses were different, the vegetation had changed, and the faces of the people he passed were completely unfamiliar. He desperately searched for his hut, but in its place he found only a barren lot. Distressed, he stopped an old traveler and asked for news of his mother and the fisherman Urashima Taro. The old man scratched his head, thought for a long time, and finally replied, "Urashima Taro?" "Ah, yes. I remember an old story my grandfather used to tell me. It is said that a fisherman by that name vanished into thin air 300 years ago, leaving his mother to die of grief, in that precise moment." Taro understood the terrible truth. 3 days spent in the Dragon Palace corresponded to 3 centuries on Earth. Overcome by despair and loneliness, the young man returned to the beach. In the chaos of his mind, he forgot his promise to the princess and, hoping for an answer or a shred of comfort, untied the silk cord and opened the tamadabeko. No material treasure emerged from the box, but rather a thick cloud of white smoke that enveloped him entirely. That mystical smoke contained all 300 years that the Dragon Palace had kept hidden from him to preserve his youth. Suddenly, Taro's hair turned snow-white, his skin became deeply wrinkled, and his back bent under the weight of centuries. In a matter of moments, the strong young fisherman transformed into a frail old man, falling to the sand as the cloud dispersed in the wind, leaving behind only the eternal whisper of the ocean. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If so, please subscribe to the channel.